Welcome back to the channel. This will be the transfer tips for Double Gameweek 32. I'll highlight 11 players to buy, hold, sell and skip with 1 week punt as well to really tackle this game week only. On screen you can see the most transferred in players at this point of the game week. This video is recorded on Wednesday morning and we will obviously get some price rises and falls over the next couple of days. For example, Jacob Murphy is expected to rise to 5.2 million and he is the most transferred in player at the moment. And at a close second is Jean-Philippe Mateta, who also scored in Game Week 31, and the likes of Rodgers, Munoz and Milenkovic complete the top 5. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single upload or live stream, both FPL and UCL Fantasy. After extensive coverage of the Champions League, the full focus now shifts towards the Premier League, and all of this pre-recorded content will help you to be up to date with the injuries, also suspensions, and much more that you need to know with the stats, form, and also the fixtures coming up, which are very important to tackle with consecutive double game weeks on the horizon and a blank in Game Week 34. Check all the links in the description below to support the channel and grow this community. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. What better way to start than Jacob Murphy, the most transferred in player for Double Gameweek 32, who returned big time on Monday night. He got 16 points against Leicester, and in the reverse fixture earlier this season, he also got 13 points against the Foxes. So that's 7 goals and 9 fantasy assists for the Premier League campaign, and his XGI is very impressive for a midfielder who started at 5 million. So it's 9.46, the expected goal involvements, combining the XG and the expected assists, and he has 122 FPL points for the season. He has a double game week right now against Man United and Crystal Palace, both at home. Then it's Aston Villa away, so if you are looking to bench boost in 33, Jacob Murphy is less appealing, but I still think he's a decent option, especially for blank game week 34 against Ipswich Town at home. Then it's Brighton away and Chelsea at home, but it's really the double game week in 32 and the blank in 34, where the likes of Jacob Murphy are very good FPL assets and also a fantastic enabler. With Anthony Gordon being a doubt now for the upcoming deadline, I think Jacob Murphy is the clear standout in that Newcastle midfield, and he's one of the key reasons why I had one of the best game weeks of the season in 31. Murphy also has 22 shots inside the box, which to be fair isn't very good, even for a budget midfielder. Only 14 shots on target and 10 big chances, which is looking a bit more impressive here. 11 big chance created and 30 key passes. So the stats are a bit all over the place, but for this price point, you're not going to find much better value. And I think he's actually the best midfielder at 5.2 million and below. On the other hand, I don't think there's a clear standout in that Crystal Palace midfield, but arguably Eze, who is the more expensive asset compared to Ismaila Sarr, is the superior asset, especially in the business end of the season where Eze tends to step it up a notch and get goals and assists on a very consistent basis. He has back-to-back double game weeks in 32 and 33, which results in a blank in Game Week 34. But it's Man City and Newcastle away in Game Week 32, followed up by Bournemouth at home and Arsenal away only days before the FA Cup semi-final. And for Game Weeks 35 and 36, Crystal Palace will face Nottingham Forest at home and Tottenham away. But the main appeal about these Crystal Palace assets is these back-to-back double game weeks, and if you have the free hit, I think it's a viable strategy to triple up on the Eagles, and I think Eze is definitely worth it in the midfield. You might even want to consider a double up in that position with both Sarr and Eze simultaneously, but if funds are no issue, I would recommend Eze over Sarr, then have Mateta up front and Daniel Munoz at the back. That is my favourite Crystal Palace triple up, but in my case, I'm bench boosting in Game Week 32, as I'll discuss in my team selection. So because budget is a bit tight, I'm not able to go for Eze over Sarr, so I've made my bed there, and I'm hoping the Senegalese winger can catch up and also compete with the likes of Eze, who has 87 shots this season, 97 FPL points, only 2 Premier League goals, but 8 fantasy assists, 2 of which came in Game Week 31, and I think Eze is probably the best midfielder who doubles in Game Week 32. But Jacob Murphy might have something to say about that, and maybe Ismaila Sarr could surprise us. Eze also has 7 big chances, 9 big chance created, and 51 key passes. If you're on the market for a midfielder who doubles in either Game Week 32 or 33, there is no better place to look than Eze. Having said that, Morgan Rodgers is yet another option you might want to go for in the midfield, who is extremely cheap and accessible, and he doubles in Game Week 33 against Newcastle at home and Man City away, and it's Southampton away this week, but will he start with the Paris Saint-Germain fixtures in the Champions League in between? That is my only doubt, but if you want to go for one Aston Villa outfield player, Morgan Rogers is by far my favourite because in the grand scheme of things, he won't be rested or rotated as often as Ollie Watkins up front or the likes of Asensio and Rashford in the midfield position, at least in FPL terms. So Morgan Rogers is my favourite Aston Villa asset alongside Emi Martinez in goal, which I discussed in my best wildcard team video, which is out on the channel. Rogers has 8 goals in the Premier League and 7 assists, 42 key passes and 132 FPL points. He is on 8 yellow cards and that would mean 2 more would result in a 2-game suspension, but the quota does increase to 15 yellow cards after teams have played their 32nd league game. So Morgan Rogers should be in the clear, and despite blanking in 34 and having some kind of average fixtures afterwards, I think it's a great option for Game Week 32 if he starts against Southampton. There is still a slight doubt in the back of my mind about whether this is a nice time to rotate him because he has played virtually every single game for Aston Villa in the Premier League and those cup competitions where he has scored and assisted on a very consistent basis, particularly in the FA Cup and in recent Champions League matches. And that double in Game Week 33 isn't the greatest in terms of the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, but I think Aston Villa can score against both of those teams, particularly Manchester City, despite the fact that fixture is away from home. So Morgan Rogers is my favourite Aston Villa asset, even over Emi Martinez, and I would recommend him in the midfield. If you are bench boosting in Double Gameweek 33, I think the likes of Virgil van Dijk are great options despite the fact that Liverpool won't double again this season because they face Leicester away, and if Ruud van Nistelrooy is still in charge there, that could be another clean sheet for Liverpool as they are edging ever closer towards the Premier League title. And even West Ham at home this week, I wouldn't mind starting Virgil van Dijk whatsoever, but of course the priority would be Livramento, these Newcastle defenders, Daniel Munoz, and perhaps you would go for the likes of Saliba, all those Arsenal options in this position. But I think Liverpool have the best chance of a clean sheet over the next 2 games in terms of a single game week at least, because those doublers will be more appealing. Then in Game Week 34, they also feature against Tottenham at home, followed up by Chelsea away and Arsenal at home. So there is a bit of a tough period for Liverpool in late April and going into early May, but I still think they can get some points there, maybe a clean sheet or 2. And ultimately, for the next 2 game weeks, I definitely keep Virgil van Dijk, who only has 1 goal in the Premier League this season and 1 assist. 14 shots inside the box is okay for a centre-back, but I think his goal for it has dipped in the last couple of months, and that's 117 FPL points. But I think Van Dijk has 1 more Premier League goal in store from now until Game Week 38, and he has 4 big chances, 10 key passes, and an XG figure of 1.53. So in terms of Liverpool options in that defensive line, I think Konate offers even better value, but he's also more injury prone. So Van Dijk is just a safe set and forget option, and you could even keep him until the very end. But for the next 2 game weeks, I would highly recommend holding on to Van Dijk. I wildcarded in Game Week 30, and one of the mistakes I made was keeping Justin Kluivert, but he could actually repay my faith and almost turn it into a positive if he starts against Fulham and scores. He's only played against them once in his entire career, and he did score, and a repeat of that in Double Gameweek 32 when I'm activating the bench boost would be more than welcome. But let's wait and see if we get any more updates from now until the deadline, and they will be covered in future videos and podcasts, including the live stream, which is the plan on Saturday. And I think Kluivert is also decent in the preceding game weeks, facing Crystal Palace, Man United, Arsenal and Aston Villa, but the fixtures aren't the greatest, and I think with Bournemouth, with their recent form in terms of results and performances, you could definitely look elsewhere, even with Kluivert. And when you've got the likes of Sarr, Eze and also Jacob Murphy, Rodgers, I think those are the midfielders you should be prioritising at a similar price and below. Kluivert has 12 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League this season, an XG stat of 9.67 and 147 FPL points. But if he is available against Fulham, I would highly recommend holding on to him. But we could get an update by Iraola which suggests he will be a major doubt once again, and if that's the case, he would turn into a sell. Now, the recent quote we have about Justin Kluivert is, "Yeah, I hope he can be back. Also, we will try with Tavernier and with Sinistera. We will see how they are. It's going to be very difficult to recover all 3, but let's see. If we recover 1 or 2, it will give us some more options offensively that I think we need." So it's not the worst of updates, but it's also not too encouraging. And of course, his other press conference he did before the Game Week 31 deadline was very ominous, and that kind of spelled trouble for Kluivert owners, and that's why I benched him in my previous team selection video. But I think Kluivert is currently a hold, and that could change very soon, and after Double Game Week 32, I'd be more keen on selling the Dutchman. Another hold is Ivanosen. If only I did that on my Gameweek 30 wildcard. I only had him for one game week and he blanked, but in the last 6 games since his return from injury, he has scored 6 goals, which includes a brace against West Ham in that 2-2 draw in Gameweek 31. So I think Ivanosen is a very underrated shout with low ownership at 4.4%, and the fixtures might not be the best, but I still think Bournemouth can score in those games, and if Kluivert is back, that will add more creativity and problems for the opposition, and I think Ivanosen can continue to deliver, maybe not at the same rate, because I think there will be a drop-off, but I think he can score every 2 or 3 games and get bonus points in the process, but the priority in that forward line should be Marmoush, Mateta, and Alexander Isak in my opinion, and for blank Gameweek 34, you might want to go for Mateus Cunha, who is now back from suspension. Ivanosen has 9 goals and 4 assists, 17 big chances, and 110 FPL points, and I think that ownership is just so appealing. The same goes for his price tag, so I think he is actually worth investment in certain cases, but I would prioritise those that are doubling in either Gameweek 32 or 33, or have a great fixture in 34, which to be fair, Man United isn't the greatest of games with their recent form. I think United have been decent, but Ivanosen is definitely not too shabby over the next 3 game weeks. So I would hold him in most scenarios, but if you are in a position where you're really happy with your squad and want to make some aggressive moves, perhaps moving Ivanosen to a doubler in 32 or 33 is the way to go. After consecutive double-digit hauls in blank Gameweek 29 and also in 30 against Man United, Elanga did come off at halftime against Aston Villa, and that also puts a doubt on his Gameweek 32 prospects. He is currently yellow flagged, and with 6 goals and 8 assists this season, he has had a very impressive campaign for Nottingham Forest. Only 17 shots on target, but the main thing to talk about here is the injury updates by the Forest manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, who just won that award for Manager of the Month, and he said the following: he didn't feel comfortable. Unfortunately, we have to scan another player. Hopefully it is nothing. We have to see what the injury is. Hopefully we will have more information in a couple of days. Let's see. He was not totally okay. It was more about trying to help the boys and making the right adjustments. So those were 2 different interviews, but those are the quotes by Nuno on Elanga, and I think he will be available for either Gameweek 32 or 33, but despite the fact he is in this hold category, if you don't have the likes of Rodgers, Murphy, Sarr or Eze, I think moving Elanga on to one of those midfielders makes a lot of sense, and you might even be in a position with a lot of money in the bank and you can upgrade him to Saka in double Gameweek 33. So in those scenarios, I would move Elanga on. Otherwise, he could be a nice 5th midfielder in your setup, sit on the bench more often than not. But if you are bench boosting in either Gameweek 32 or 33, you might want to get rid of these yellow and orange flag players like Kluivert and Elanga and then move to those doublers like I just mentioned. Another injury doubt to discuss in the midfield and another Anthony is Anthony Gordon, and unfortunately he is yellow flagged, and the recent comments by Eddie Howe don't bode well for those Gordon owners in Fantasy Premier League. Anthony wasn't close, he hasn't been able to train with us yet, he is still feeling the effects of that tackle with England. We hope that we may see him soon, but I've got no certainty on that. So I know Eddie Howe can be quite questionable in press conferences when giving updates on players, but I'm not too confident about Anthony Gordon's minutes in double Gameweek 32, and that could mean a surprise inclusion, you could say, for Harvey Barnes, who was not really thought about a couple of weeks ago. And Gordon had that 3-game suspension, of course, across all competitions. He recently served that, but missing the Brentford and Leicester games due to injury, and of course he was still suspended in Gameweek 30 anyway, that is going to be a major concern there. And the clear standout in that Newcastle midfield would be Jacob Murphy because of the price, the minutes, and the recent returns, but Harvey Barnes could be a great differential in Anthony Gordon's position, and Isak would be the priority. Nick Pope in goal is decent, Livramento, Burn and Trippier offer decent options in the defensive line, and let's not forget Fabian Schär, who has a bit of attacking potential and bonus points, so there are plenty of options to choose from in that Newcastle team, but I think in the midfield Jacob Murphy is the best option right now, and Harvey Barnes would be second. So with Anthony Gordon, there might be some more positive updates in the next couple of days, but as things stand, he is a sell. Anthony Robertson has been outstanding throughout the entire season, but there has been a slight dip in recent weeks, and I do think in terms of FPL output, he was much better in the first half of the campaign with 10 fantasy assists, no goals, but decent underlying numbers and a bit of bonus points on top of it. But Fulham haven't kept that many clean sheets overall, and that hasn't really helped Robinson in certain matches, but he's still a decent option, and there are some good fixtures on the horizon. For example, in blank Gameweek 34 against Southampton away, and they have sacked their manager Juric, I think it could be a great option on the free hit, or to keep him until at least Gameweek 35, just because of that Southampton fixture alone. Then you've got Everton at home in Gameweek 36, so I don't think Robinson is actually a bad hold right now, and I did discuss this a couple of weeks ago, but with the recent form and Fulham showing a bit of weaknesses defensively and Robertson not really compensating for that with the assists, I think it's probably worth selling him to the likes of Munoz, Livramento or another Newcastle defender. You've also got Saliba, perhaps even Jakub Kiwior, a Liverpool defender, depending on when you're bench boosting in either Gameweek 32 or 33. And if it isn't 32, you might want to go for a Brighton option like Estupinian, although long term, I'm not a huge fan of that. And in Gameweek 33, you might want to tackle the Southampton fixture for West Ham and invest in Wan-Bissaka in that defensive line. And for blank Gameweek 34, there is Ait Nouri facing Leicester at home, but Robinson does match that against Southampton away. Robertson also has an XA figure of 3.16 and 91 FPL points, but I'm quite surprised he hasn't reached 100 plus yet, and I think the lack of clean sheets and also the downturn in form recently has definitely led to that, but he's still a decent option overall, but I would sell Robinson and go to one of those defenders instead. If you are on the market to replace Robinson or a defender, I would not go for Luca Dean, despite Aston Villa doubling in Gameweek 32. We just saw Dean not feature at all against Nottingham Forest, and there could be a lot of rotation between him and Maatsen. Now, if Luca Dean starts against Southampton away, there could be a massive return, so for those that own him, you might want to hold and start and hope for the best, and a lot depends on that lineup in the Champions League on Wednesday night between Aston Villa and Paris Saint-Germain. This video is recorded before then, so if Maatsen starts in that match, you might be positive about Dean in Gameweek 32, but that doesn't mean he's going to start both matches in 33, which are quite difficult anyway, against Newcastle at home and Man City away. I would favour the attackers from those teams in Gameweek 33. That even includes Newcastle with Jacob Murphy, maybe Anthony Gordon if he's fit by then, Alexander Isak, and from City you're looking at the likes of Marmoush, of course, and from Aston Villa, I think Morgan Rogers is the standout. But even when you're looking at Asensio and Rashford, perhaps even Ollie Watkins, I think all of those players are actually worth the investment over Luca Dean. I know he's cheap and he could be a decent 4th or 5th defender, but the minutes are just going to be a big headache. He is kind of an FPL troll by tradition during his time at Everton and Aston Villa, who have won 7 consecutive games before that Paris Saint-Germain game, and they have been very impressive overall, keeping clean sheets and being very competitive on all fronts, but I wouldn't go for Luca Dean. You can find better value in terms of clean sheets, minutes, and also fixtures. I just don't think, apart from Southampton away, there are going to be many clean sheets for Aston Villa on the horizon. They blank in 34, which is why they double in 33 in the first place, but you can find a better defence like Arsenal, for example, to invest in instead. And I just think PSG will be very difficult over both legs, and the full focus will be on those games rather than Southampton away, where the likes of Luca Dean could have his minutes managed, and if not, that will be the case in Double Gameweek 33. The same applies to those Aston Villa forwards and midfielders, but if Ollie Watkins is benched against PSG, I'd be very bullish about him starting against Southampton over the weekend and getting a massive return there against the Saints. So if it's Rashford starting instead, then I think Watkins will be the one to kind of tackle as a 1-week punt for Gameweek 32 on the free hit, or if you're wildcarding in 33 and just want that 1-week punt. But I have to say, if it's the other way around and Watkins starts against PSG and Rashford is on the bench, then maybe Rashford will be the one as a 1-week punt only, let's not forget, to just invest in and have some fun with it. But I think with Southampton and Leicester, those are the two teams you should be targeting in most game weeks. But we could see a small managerial bounce even with an interim. That is always a possibility, and Aston Villa will have their full focus on Paris Saint-Germain, in my opinion. So that Southampton game will be quite secondary, and it wouldn't surprise me if they conceded a goal or maybe struggled a little bit more in that game than we would have expected going into it. But Ollie Watkins has the capability of a massive return here. He hasn't had the greatest of seasons, but it's still 13 goals in the Premier League, 6 assists, 34 big chances, and 149 FPL points. He has blanked on a lot of occasions, but when he has delivered, there have been some massive returns, getting a goal and an assist in the same game, and he can definitely score a brace or a hat-trick against Southampton. And there we have it, 11 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. head of Double Gameweek 32 with a 1 week punt, of course, in Ollie Watkins. If you disagree about any of them or maybe have other points to raise, then let me know down in the comment section below. Let's continue the conversation and check out all my social media platforms to engage with a brilliant community. On screen, you can see the most transferred out players. Kluivert, Aina, Wood, Gabriel and Mbeumo are the top 5 most transferred out at the moment, and we'll probably see a lot of price changes. I think Gabriel is actually expected to go down in price tonight, and I could make a move early on, as I'll discuss in my team selection video heading your way. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single upload or live stream for both FPL and UCL Fantasy. Follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below, which includes my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League and Spotify can also be found in that description. I wish you all the best of luck for Double Gameweek 32 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL Fantasy content.